3/4 of the iconic ladies of Sex and the City have returned for And Just Like That. But was it worth it? Kristen here, and today we are talking about HBO Max's new And Just Like That series, which is a continuation of Sex and the City. This new series had Sarah Jessica Parker, Cynthia Nixon, and Kristen Davis return to reprise their roles as Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte. However, Kim Cattrall, who played Samantha, made the smart decision to not return to this continuation.
Who is this?
While the original Sex and the City followed the women in their 30s, through their careers and their relationships and sex and love and their friendships, this next chapter follows the women in their 50s. We see where they are now. 3 of them are still close friends. Samantha is quote-unquote in Europe. They do bring her back, so to speak, a couple of times through texting with Carrie, but it wasn't necessary and feels a bit disingenuous. So let's get into the rest of the story, though. So Carrie has moved on from her Sex and the City column, and she is married to Big, and they are finally happy and things are going well for them. That is until he dies after he has a heart attack after a Peloton ride. And there was just so much controversy around that moment, because first it's like, oh no, you're gonna kill Big, and then it's like, oh look, here's this fun Peloton commercial in real life that has him in it. And then it's like, oh no, now it's come out that the real actor is a creep. And, you know, there was a lot of layers going on even just outside of the show. Carrie is also getting into podcasting and is a guest on this very risque show. And for her, we really spend a lot of the season kind of bouncing back and forth between her career and her new friendship with her realtor Seema, and trying to get past Big's death. Where does she belong? Will she be ready to move on? By the end of the series for Carrie, I feel like they did try to bring in a new love interest that felt very out of nowhere and wrapped up a little too quickly. I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. I thought it was just very cheesy and a little too on the nose. Getting into Charlotte, we get to see her with her family. She still has a strong relationship with her husband. Her daughter Lily is more of the buttoned up one who, you know, kind of does whatever her parents say, although we do learn throughout the season that she's hiding a little bit of herself from her family. And then there's Rock, who is going through a whole discovery with their gender identity. Charlotte also has a new friend in wealthy PTA mom Lisa Todd Wexley. And a lot of the season we see Charlotte at odds with Rock, trying to connect with them and also trying to build up this friendship with Lisa. And then I would say Miranda has the most going on this season. She has her family with her son Brady, who is a little too hormonally crazed with his girlfriend, and then she has her husband Steve that she has no connection with at all anymore. She feels like their relationship has hit a rut. All they do is, you know, spend the evenings eating ice cream and watching movies together, which I don't see a problem with that. Miranda definitely feels very different than she did in the original series. She decides to go back to school to kind of change course in her career, and when we first are introduced to her there, she has a lot of like Karen type of tendencies, and then eventually she meets Carrie's boss, one of the podcasters, Che, and falls for them. And so she pieces out of her relationship with Steve to be with Che, which I'm surprised worked out, to be honest. I think they did Steve dirty in the show, and I just hate that idea that I feel like we get out of Hollywood a lot, where if you are not feeling sparks and butterflies after 35 years of marriage, that your relationship is over and you're not in love anymore. And I don't think that that's true. Just because you're comfortable and you're eating ice cream and watching movies together, that means your relationship isn't good anymore. I feel like, if anything, that just means that those sparks and butterflies have turned into a real strong bond where you can just be yourself with that person. And I think that it does a disservice to people in regular life to be like, oh, well, that just means my relationship's not good anymore. Why do you always need drama and chaos? I would rather be sitting eating ice cream every night with Steve than run around following Che like a little lost puppy. But that's just my 2 cents. So now that we've kind of talked through where all of these women are in their lives, let's just talk about the series as a whole. I feel like this was one that when I first started it, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure, like, I'm sort of intrigued. It's kind of throwing me for a loop a little bit, but like, let's see how it goes. But then as it went on, this became more of one that I found sort of interesting to watch, even though I didn't think it was good. Just because I was curious to see, like, where are things going here? Why are they making these choices that don't really seem to make sense? And I think overall this was a very disappointing series, especially for one that is a continuation of something that was so iconic. This is probably one of the rare situations where I was like, even though you brought back those original actors, it didn't work. A lot of the characters went in directions that didn't make sense for their original characters' personalities, especially Miranda. A lot of the times that these women were together, it felt like they were just judging each other and didn't have a great friendship. And I think that they turned these women into 2D characters. They didn't feel realistic. The writing was very weak. It felt like they were trying to show what it was like being a 50-something-year-old now, but in a way that sort of felt like they were making fun of them. There was a lot of things that felt like filler or just a waste of time. Like when Carrie is calling her friends about a beeping in her apartment, or when she meets the downstairs neighbor who was sort of living the life that she used to live. I just didn't really care. They also tried to make the show more diverse, because in all honesty, the original one was not. But the way that they did that just made all of those queer and people of color characters sidekicks to this main cast of 3 white women. So it did not achieve what they were trying to. The show also just felt very heavy-handed in its themes and the way that it tackled, race and sexuality and different gender identities, as if they really needed to spell it out because, the audience is not smart enough to figure out what's going on. They were trying to fit a whole year into 10 episodes. I think it felt very rushed, it felt very performative, and I don't think that new viewers or OG fans are going to look at this and be like, yeah, give me more. It was interesting to see what they would do if they did get a chance to continue this series, and they didn't, and it wasn't worth it. So I personally don't think that this show should get a second season. I would have rather just ended on the movies. I think that this was a really disappointing continuation of this story that, it really deserves better for these characters who have had such a long legacy. And it felt like the people who were writing this don't know any of that stuff. There was a lot of, I think, references and connections they could have made that they didn't. One, for example, is the end of the season, they're talking about the worst breakups. And Carrie had a pretty bad breakup in the original series where, some guy left her a post-it note breakup. But instead she talks about how big dying is the ultimate breakup, and I just didn't think that worked. When it comes down to it, I think And Just Like That was a big waste of time. I don't think that it added anything meaningful to the original characters and their stories. I think it was too heavy-handed in the way that they tried to tackle topics. I would not want to see a season 2, and I think that if you are interested in going back to these characters, I would just rewatch the original series and those movies and leave it at that. I'm gonna pretend that this did not happen. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you grow up on Sex and the City? Did you watch this new continuation? What did you think? Make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out the exclusive Discord available on my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!